All right, today's lesson is on exact trig values. I might ask you, what's the sine of 30 degrees? What's the sine of 245 degrees? Something like that. And I'm going to go through the steps on how to do that. And the key, or the most important, or a lot of the important stuff here is to, number one, list the quadrant, because the quadrant will tell you if it's positive or negative. State whether it is positive or negative, that comes from the quadrant. State the reference angle, and then state the exact value. But to help us do all of this, it would really help to fill out this little table. Now you can print this out. I put this in with your notes, so you can print this out. And then it has all the examples on there. You just have to do the work from there. All right, so here's a really easy way, and these come from our 30, 60, 90, and 45, 45, 90 right triangles. It's an easy way to remember this chart, because these are the key to these answers. The first, I'm going to fill out the sine first. Remember, the sine is your y, the cosine is your x in the unit circle. The tangent is sine over cosine, or y over x. And here's an easy way to do this. Square root of 0 over 2. We'll go back and simplify all these in a minute. Square root of 1 over 2. Square root of 2 over 2. Square root of 3 over 2. Square root of 4 over 2. Okay, but I can go back and simplify these. Square root of 0 is 0. 0 divided by 2 is 0. So the sine of 0, the y value at 0 degrees or 0 radians, is 0. The sine of 30 degrees is a half. If you go back and look at your unit circle, you'll see the y value at 30 degrees is 1/2. This cannot be simplified. That cannot be simplified. The square root of 4 is 2. 2 over 2 is 1. Again, if you look at your unit circle at 90 degrees, your y value is 1. Now watch how simple this is. To find the next row, you just take these right here for sine and flip them around. Reverse order, so the 1 goes here. Just reverse them. Because the x value at 90 degrees is 0. If you looked at the ordered pair, that ordered pair is 0, 1. The x value is 0. The cosine is just y over x. Or sine divided by cosine. Well, 0 divided by 1 is 0. I'm going to come back to this one in a minute. Any number divided by itself is 1, and you can never divide by 0, so this is undefined. Okay, these other ones, I'm just taking that 1/2 divided by that, and you can do the math on that. It's just the square root of 3 over 3. And this one, square root of 3 over 2 divided by 1/2, we'll flip this over, the 2's would cancel out. You just get the square root of 3. So the tangent at 60 degrees, or pi over 3, is the square root of 3. Practice filling this chart out. It'll make this work so much easier. Know this chart. All right, so number one, we're going to determine the exact value of cosine 5 pi over 3. 5 pi over 3. So where is that? Well, if you do what we did on a previous assignment, this remembers 3 pi over 3 because that's just pi. This is 0 pi over 3, or doubled would be 6 pi over 3. And then down here would be between 3 and 6 would be 4.5. So I'm just doing this to find the quadrant, because number one says state the quadrant. Well, this then is over here. It's in quadrant 4. There's something I mentioned a long time ago. It's all seniors turn crazy. What that tells me is all of your trig ratios are positive in quadrant 1. Sine, cosine, and tangent are positive in 1. The sine is positive in quadrant 2. The tangent is positive in 3, and the cosine is positive in 4. Why? Because every ordered pair in quadrant 4 is positive, negative, and your cosine is your x, sine is your y. Here it's positive, positive, they're all positive. Here it is negative, positive, So the cosine's negative, but the sine's positive. Down here, they're both negative. So cosine and sine are negative, but negative divided by negative is a positive. So the second answer to this is we can state whether it's positive or negative. In quadrant 4, it is positive. The reference angle, which we had an assignment on before, is just, again, the distance to the x-axis. How far apart are these two? Well, subtract them. You get pi over 3. Now this is why this chart is so important. Because I look back up here at pi over 3, and I look down at cosine. Cosine's a half. I know it's positive. I know it's positive 1/2. Okay, let's do a couple more. Let's do a bunch more. 1, because they're fun. And 2, oops, that's a pi. 2, because you need practice. So where is 11 pi over 6? Well, this is 0 pi over 6. Double that would be 12 pi over 6. This would be 6 pi over 6. Between 6 and 12 would be 9 pi over 6. So again, this is in quadrant 4. Okay? Quadrant 4 tells me, oops, number 1, quadrant 4. That tells me the sine, S-I-G-N, of the sine, S-I-N-E, in quadrant 4, the sine is negative. My reference angle, how far is 11 pi over 6 to 12 pi over 6? Subtract them, you get pi over 6. And now I use my chart. I look up pi over 6, which is the same thing as 30 degrees. The sine is a half, but this one's negative. So the sine of 11 pi over 6, the y value of 11 pi over 6 is negative 1/2. All right, number 3, tangent. 7 pi over 4. What quadrant is 7 pi over 4? Well, this is 0 pi over 4, doubled, 8 pi over 4. Boy, I'm picking them all in quadrant 4. This is quadrant 4. And what is the tangent in 4? Well, again, it's sine over cosine, y over x, so that's negative. Number 3, my reference angle, how far away is 7 pi over 4 to 8 pi over 4? It's pi over 4. Now I look at my chart. I look up pi over 4 and tangent is 1, but we said that's negative. So what is the tangent of 7 pi over 4? Negative 1. What if it's in degrees? Well, there's really nothing different, except now I'm focusing on degrees. Where is 100 or 210 degrees? I know that's 270 and 180, so it's over here in quadrant 3. So the first answer, quadrant 3. Now, is your x value, cosine is your x, positive or negative in 3? Well, it's negative. What is your reference angle? How far away from the x-axis is 210 degrees? It's 30 degrees. So I go back and look at my chart. 30 degrees, cosine, square root 3 over 2, but this one's negative. Square root 3 over 2. All right, the next one is a negative angle. How do we deal with that? Sine of negative 225 degrees. Now, remember, negatives go this direction. This is negative 180. This is negative 270. So negative 225 is in quadrant 2. Why is that important? Because I know in quadrant 2, my sine or my y values are positive. My reference angle is how far apart these two are. A lesson we learned the other day, it's always absolute value, distance is positive. Those are 45 degrees apart. Now I look at my chart, I know my answer is positive. sine of 45 is square root 2 over 2. That's why that chart is really, really, really important. All right, let's take a look at a tangent of a negative angle. Where is that? Well, 360 is all the way around, so this is more than one time around. This is negative 180. These are, remember, are multiples of 90. This is 0 and negative 360. But that's not enough. Add 90 onto that, we're right here. It's not in a quadrant. Okay, it's not in a quadrant. So what I'm looking for is the actual ordered pair there. The ordered pair there is 0, negative 1. And this is my cosine, this is my sine. So the tangent, remember, is sine over cosine. That's an important definition. So it'd be negative 1 over 0. But what did we learn this year about dividing by 0? You can never do it. So this is undefined. Okay, it's undefined at negative 450 degrees. Got two more problems. Cosine of negative 17 pi over 6. How do we do that? Well, just like we did the ones before, this is negative 6 pi over 6. This is 0 pi over 6, doubled, negative 12 pi over 6. Not enough. And I'm going to put the ones in the middle. Between these two would be negative 3 pi over 6. Between these two would be negative 9 pi over 6. Still not enough. Notice we're just adding 3 onto the top. 0, 3, 6, 9, 12. This would be 15. This would be 18. And that's enough. I can see where that is. It's over here, closer to the 18. Okay, so this is negative 17 pi over 6, which is quadrant 3. And what do we know about the x value in quadrant 3? We know the x value is negative. What's the reference angle? And how far apart are these two? Pi over 6 units apart. And if you look at your chart, the cosine of pi over 6, first off it's negative, is square root 3 over 2. One last one. No, I'm not going to do that last one because we really already did it. That should be enough to help you get through your work. And as always, have fun.